Hey guys, welcome to or back to my channel. Today we're gonna be doing my February book wrap up, except I'm gonna do January and February combined, and then I'm also gonna do the last few books that I read in 2021 because I had like 3 books that I just never talked about. So yeah, if you haven't already, like, comment, and I hope you enjoy the video, but let's just get right into it. So I'm gonna go backwards on this. I'm gonna do February's books first, and then January's, and then the last few books that I read in 2021, just because February just ended. So for February I read 4 books. So the first book that I read in February was my favorite book so far this year. It's kind of a funny story by Ned Vizzini. I still don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it's okay. I kind of marked up this book. There wasn't that much to mark up, honestly, but my tabs, it's really pretty, but still. Yeah, this book I read in, let me see, I read in 2 days. Basically this book is about this teenager named Craig who is experiencing, he has depression, and it gets really bad for him because he goes off of his medication just like suddenly when he stops taking it. And so he checks himself into the mental ward of the hospital in his area, and he has to be checked into the adult side because the children's side is currently under reservation. It's under construction, so he gets checked into the adult side, and basically it's just about his journey before he starts to feel like suicidal and everything, and then during the hospital, his stay at the hospital, and it's just like going through all of his feelings and why he's feeling the way he's feeling and everything. And it was really good, and it was like very heartwarming. Like, it wasn't a really down, depressing type of book, even though it was about like depression. It wasn't like a super sad book, and I was like, the entire time I was just smiling, and it was so cute, and there's a little bit of romance in it, not like a huge romance, but yeah, it didn't take me that long to read at all. Just marked like some of my favorite quotes in the book or areas that I thought were the most important, and I'm gonna try and do this video with like no spoilers. So, but I gave this book a 5 out of 5 star because there was nothing I would change about the book at all. I tell you, I flew through reading it. Like, I didn't want to stop reading it at all, and the characters were all really relatable. And then a lot of books that are for like not younger people, but like where the main characters are like high schoolers, a lot of the times it's like they're still doing adult things, but I feel like this book was really good at describing an actual teenager. Like, there was like a few, I would definitely look up for the trigger warnings for this book though, because there were a few like drugs were mentioned, and of course like depression and everything, so I would definitely look up the trigger warnings before reading it. But yeah, this is the first book I read in February. Highly recommend it. I want to reread it again. I want to reread it just to like, because I know what's gonna happen, so I want to like see anything that I missed. So the next book I read in February was Normal People by Rooney. And okay, before I read this book, I honestly did not know what it was about. I went into this book no clue what I was about to read, but I also heard that like people say you're either gonna love this book or you're gonna hate this book, and I definitely agree with that. There's no like middle ground, because it's just, you're either gonna relate to it and like really love the characters, or you're gonna be like, this was a pointless story. Personally, I'll never read this book again. I feel like it was just, it wasn't pointless. Like, it was really good, and it was definitely the definition of like right person, wrong time, because the 2 characters in this book fell in and out of love. Well, they didn't even fall out of love. It was just like if they would just communicate. If they would have just communicated more, that's it, man. It just, but like what this story is about is these two people, Connell and Marianne. I don't know if I said her name right, but they grew up together, and Marianne was kind of like the, you know, weird kid that everybody knows. And Connell was the more popular kid who played sports. And so they grew up together though. And Connell's mother cleaned Marianne's house. And so like they kind of started talking eventually in like high school, and they would secretly form like a friendship, and then it turned into like a romantic friendship, and secretly they were just like, you know, doing romantic things on the side behind everybody's back. But once they went off to college, they kind of started to like, eventually they had an open relationship, and then yeah, it just went back and forth the entire time. It was a good book, but it wasn't like a book that I'll ever like pick up again, and I wasn't dying to finish it, so it took me a little longer to finish. But I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars because I feel like it just dragged on, and that's saying a lot for it to be a small book. Please don't come for me. Yeah, I recommend the book though. Like, there were a lot of good qualities in it, so I definitely do recommend this book. I just personally gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, but I think it's a very likable book. But I also agree with, you're either gonna love this book or you're going to hate it. Yeah. Hey, so this is editing me, but I feel like I didn't do a good job explaining why I don't like this, why I gave it such a low rating. But basically the book just wasn't for me. Like I fully understand why people love the book so much, because the storyline was really strong and the characters are really strong, and everything like that. Just personally, I hate the whole miscommunication trope thing. So the fact that they went back and forth with their relationship all because of miscommunication really just didn't sit right with me. So that's my real reasoning. Yeah. The next book I read was The Elite, the selection series. I read this one last year in like October, and then I never talked about it, so I'm just gonna do both of these books at the same time. Let's see, this is definitely a series I would have loved in middle school. Like 7th grade me would have freaking eaten this series up. With that being said, 12th grade me, just, this book makes me so mad, or at least this book makes me so mad. This book was actually really good, and I gave it like a 4 out of 5 stars. The second book though, spoiler, because I want to talk about this book. Love triangles. Let's talk about love triangles. Are so, I feel like, again, you're either gonna love them or you're gonna hate them, because I feel like so many people can do love triangles wrong, but so many people can do them right. Like, for example, Vampire Diaries. Damon and Stefan and Elena. Do I have a favorite? Yes. Personally, I shipped Elena over Stefan and Elena, but I like both. Like, both work, and so that's a good love triangle. Twilight. Edward, Bella, and Jacob. That's the name, right? Jacob. Edward and Bella all the way. That's a love triangle that works. This is not a love triangle that works. Like, the obvious choice is Maxon. I don't understand why she's going back and forth. What's his name? I don't even remember his name. What's his freaking name? Aspen needs to go back home. I'm definitely gonna finish the series though, because I want to know what happens. But I gave this book, The Elite, which is the second one in the series, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because it wasn't horrible, but it made me very, very mad. The entire time I was just like, come on, America, like, get it together. So first book, gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Second book, a 3 out of 5 stars. Series is a middle school series for sure, and I mean, it did come out when I was in like elementary, middle school, so it makes sense. But yeah, the next book that I read in February, the book that I just finished like 2 days ago, If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nowlin. This book ripped out my heart, but put it back together, right? It made me feel like all happy and warm, you know? And then it destroyed it again. This book hurts. You read this book, and okay, personally, I feel like it should have been shorter. It drug out for a long time, and there were a lot of parts that were kind of boring, and it was like, okay, get on with it. Like, I skimmed through a lot of pages, I'm not gonna lie. I skimmed through a lot of pages. Just because there was some parts that was like, this has nothing to do with the overall storyline. Like, I'm not gonna remember this. But once you get to like page 300, chef's kiss. This book. So this book is about these two people, Autumn and Finn, who grew up together. Like, they were best friends from the time they were born, because their birthdays were like a month apart maybe, or even it may have been just like a few weeks. So from the time they were born to the time in like 8th grade, they were inseparable best friends, went everywhere with each other, and they lived right next door to each other because their moms were also best friends. So in 8th grade, basically the two of them kind of went their separate ways. Not even went their separate ways, it was a big miscommunication, and they just stopped talking. So all throughout high school, their relationship is really awkward because Autumn ends up being like one of the misfits, weird kids, and she joins like this little group of misfits and weird kids. And then Finn ends up being one of the more popular kids because he plays soccer, and he's like with the popular kids. And so basically the two groups don't like each other. Autumn ends up getting a boyfriend, Jamie, and Finn ends up getting a girlfriend, Sylvia. And basically the two groups don't mix well together. So the entire 4 years of high school, the two of them are like kind of talking on and off like every once in a while. And then in 12th grade, they kind of get closer, and Autumn is like, I'm in love with him, I love him so much, he's my first true love. But she's like, Jamie is just, he's here and he loves me, and I know we can work, right? And then Finn is basically doing the same thing with Sylvia. So their entire relationship is a big miscommunication. This entire book is a big miscommunication. Like, they just don't talk. It's just like, if the two of you would sit down and talk together, everything would work out. Everything will work out. So I hated that. This book hurt so bad, and this is the first book to actually make me cry in a long time. So, but I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, just because there were a lot of parts in it that was like, this is unneeded, we don't need this part. With that being said, highly recommend this book. It's chef's kiss. So that's all the books I read in February. Now for January, the first book I read was The Midnight Library. This book, I'm not even gonna lie, this book took me so long to read. I read through the first like 150 pages, like that, right? And then it just dragged on and on and on. But first, if you like, The Midnight Library is basically about this girl who commits suicide, and she basically doesn't die. She's taken to a library, the Midnight Library, where she's able to go through a bunch of different lives that she could have had if she made different decisions. It goes through like her book of regrets and everything, and she's basically just trying to find the life that she wants to live the most. And it sounds like a really good concept, but the problem is it doesn't even really dive into mental health at all. Like, she just suddenly is like, okay, I like this life, I'm gonna live it. And it's just like, how does that work? Because you definitely didn't want to live a minute ago, so how are we happy now? And she does that like throughout the entire book. Each new life she's like, oh, I like this one, and then she doesn't like it. And so you probably go through like 50 different lives in this book, and it's just like, get to the point. That sounds so bad, but really, like, just get to the point. And eventually it just got really repetitive, and it was like, okay, like, how is she, one, she's not getting any better. Like, she's literally still sad and everything. And 2, it was supposed to be a book about mental health and nothing was ever discussed. It's just like suddenly she just snapped out of it and was like, okay, I'm happy now. Like, I mean, okay, if that's what you want to go on, then sure. So it took me a long time to read this book because it just kept going on and on about the same thing and I felt like nothing was being resolved and I got bored. But I rated it a 3 out of 5 stars. I think it's a decent book. I recommend it, but like, don't get your hopes up is all I have to say about it. So that was the first book I finished in January. I started it in like the beginning of December. So, but the second book I read in January was my first Colleen Hoover book, Ugly Love. I rated it a 5 out of 5 stars. It took me like 4 days to read. Basically the book is about, for if you don't know, this girl, Tate, and this guy, Miles, and basically they meet each other from Tate's older brother because Tate goes to move in with him. And so the two of them, it's kind of like a forbidden love, but also a enemies to lovers kind of book. So basically Miles is very secretive and like closed off and doesn't want to like talk to her at all, but Tate is like, why is he being so weird? And basically eventually they start to talk more and then they finally start to like have more of a romantic relationship. They're not in a relationship, and Miles sets all these rules and he's like we can sneak around and everything, but just know that we're never going to be in a relationship. Like, don't expect me to love you. Don't ask. I think one of them was like, don't ask me any questions about myself and don't expect me to love you or something. And so Tate is not okay with this, but she goes along with it because she basically thinks that she can fix him. And so it's just going through their entire relationship and seeing them slowly fall for each other, and it's really cute. And the ending crushed me because once you figure out why the cover looks like this, it all just comes together and you're like, it's like a bittersweet ending. I'll just say that. It's a very bittersweet ending. And you fall in love with the characters, especially Tate and Miles. I mean, they're like the main characters. And you're gonna quickly fall in love with them. I will say the beginning was kind of slow. I will admit that. But I think it was just kind of like building the characters and building the world, the setting as to where everything would be taking place. So I definitely recommend this book. It was really good. It was my first Colleen Hoover book, and so I have 3 other Colleen Hoover books which I showed in my haul. You should go check that out. And I'm gonna do a Colleen Hoover vlog where I'm reading my the rest of the Colleen Hoover books that I have. So yeah, I love her writing style, so I'm excited to read the rest of her books, especially Verity. The last book I read in January was Stolen by Lucy Christopher. This book, I gave it I wrote down 4.3 out of 5 stars. It's really just like a 4 out of 5 stars. Because it was really good, but I also like, I don't know, at certain times I found myself just kind of getting bored. But overall it was a really good book. It's about this girl who is kidnapped and she basically develops Stockholm syndrome for her captor. But at the same time I feel like I was kind of confused on some of it because what was her name? I think her name was Gemma. Yeah, okay. Gemma, the main girl, like at the end she was like, I don't have Stockholm syndrome for him. I was just like faking it the entire time. So it's kind of hard to be like, well, did she actually develop Stockholm syndrome, or does she just not want to accept that she developed Stockholm syndrome? I don't know yet. But it was a really interesting book because at times I found myself starting to actually like her captor. Not like, but like, I don't know, like I didn't hate him the entire time. Like, you know, you should hate the person who's the bad guy in a book, and I didn't hate him the entire time. So I thought that was really interesting. But it was just really cool to see her different emotions through the book. his different emotion to the book, but also how she gets out of it. And the way the story is set up, like the writing style in it is really nice, especially when you see what she's actually like, why it's set up the way it is at the end. It's really interesting to see. Once you get like halfway through, it picks up a lot more and it's easier to like read through. So that's why I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, because some parts were actually kind of boring, I'm not gonna lie. Okay. So that's all my books for this year so far, and then I have the books that I read at the end of 2021 that I never talked about. So the first one is The House in the Carillion Sea by TJ Klune. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. Personally, I would have given a 5 out of 5 stars, but I know that there's a lot of controversy around the book. I don't really know what the controversy is. I've heard different things about it, so I'm gonna have to read up on it some more, but that's why I didn't give it a 5 out of 5 stars. But I thought the storyline was really cute and the characters were adorable. But basically it's about this orphanage that has like the most dangerous magical creatures basically, and you have Linus Baker, who is the caseworker, one of the caseworkers who's assigned to go and evaluate the orphanage and make sure like it's good or whatever, to see if it needs to be shut down or not. And so Linus goes, and he's like really kind of nervous at first because he's never met these kids before, and they're supposed to be the most dangerous powerful creatures or whatever. And so he gets to the orphanage, and at first he's really like standoffish and doesn't want to talk to the kids and be around them. And he's like, I'm only here to evaluate, that's it, I'm not supposed to be talking to y'all or anything like that. And Arthur is the master, or like the headmaster of the orphanage, and basically they end up like having kind of like a romantic little thing going on. And it's just really cute to see like all of them warm up to each other, and to see the kids like really start to like Linus and to want him to stay and everything. And it was just like a really heartwarming book. I don't know, and like you'll find yourself laughing throughout it. Yeah. The last book is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This book was so good. I gave it a 5 out of, well, I personally gave it like a 4.5 out of 5 stars, just because it's about Greek mythology, and sometimes Greek mythology books can get really hard to keep up with in terms of like all the different terms and the different names and stuff. You'll be sitting there like, wait, who's this person? And I found myself doing that a lot. Not gonna lie, I skimmed over a lot of parts as well, because it's just really hard to keep up with all the different terms, and I was like, whoa. But if you dismiss the like mythology terms and everything and focus on like the main plot of the story, this book hurt to read. It hurt because I knew what was gonna happen just because of book talk. They spoiled it for me, so I knew what was gonna happen, but to actually sit there and read through it and see everything that led up to the ending, I cried on this book. I'm not gonna lie, because it's just, the characters loved each other so much. And personally, I do love Greek mythology. It's just sometimes it's hard to get into. So it was nice to find a book where like I could forget about, like, you could sit there and try to understand the mythology, but I didn't want to do that. So it's nice to find a mythology book that you didn't have to understand the actual terms behind it to understand the plot line. So I highly recommend this book if you haven't read it already. You know, winner of the Orange Prize for Fiction. I don't know what that means, but it won something. So yeah, that's all the books that I've read since about November 2021. I know it's not a lot compared to a lot of other like booktubers, but I'm gonna try to read a lot more this year. That's my goal. That's like my only New Year's resolution was to read more books this year, because I used to be like a really big reader, and then high school happened and I just stopped reading. So we're gonna pick it back up on reading. I'm gonna do a 24-hour reading vlog like next week or something, because my classes end, so I'm gonna have actual time. And yeah, we're gonna see how many books I can read during that. And the book that I'm reading currently is Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. I just started it today, so I'm excited to finish it. It's good so far. I'm only on page like 12 though. So stay tuned for the Colleen Hoover vlog and my 24-hour reading vlog. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and go check out my regular channel as well. I'll link it down below, and I'll link all my socials down below. Yeah, say your
with our shoes off, bossa on the boombox, weather never too hot.